Hello, and welcome to another fully live Friday episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Cody Kinsey, if you've forgotten, and I am a security researcher with Varonis. Today, I have my friend Stefan Kremser on to talk about the news and also complain about stuff. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Hi, yeah, I'm looking forward to the complaining part.
So, Stefan, how has your week been?
Um, my week has been good, I believe, so far,
Hmm.
but today was very exhausting. I spent pretty much the entire day working on my pick and place machine to assemble what you see in my background, maybe a little bit, the Andromeda boards. Oh, by the way, if you want one, um, and you live in Europe, go to Store and maybe buy them now.
Before the
Or what
chip
is your
shortage.
domain? Huh?
Before the chip
Yes, there's
shortage.
a couple of things happening at the same time now. We have the chip shortage, so I don't even know if I can buy the new parts for a reasonable price. So I bought a few weeks ago. I bought parts for another 50 boards. If we are sold out, I don't know when we can make more. And also, I think I announced this a couple of times already, but we have a pretty much a new store design ready, and we'll change some things, including the pricing. So if anyone wants to grab them for a bit cheaper, you can do
Hmm.
now, like today. Tomorrow might be already too late. Just want to throw that out here. Um, of course, you can also get them at your store, which is called.
I'm hack.k, easiest to remember. Or of course, you can go to hackerinterchange.com. But of course, like this also is kind of related to the not totally secret news that you're working on a brand new design and you've even started maybe creating a prototype for that. So that's all really exciting and something that we were kind of teasing during the last show. Yeah. Oh, it's actually there, and you even designed your
Yes,
own 3D printed case for it as well. So
yes,
if you're
because
curious about what the next generation of the Wi-Fi deauthor looks like, you're getting the first sneak peek right here.
what? It's pretty much all you will get in terms of info today. But yeah, no, as I said, a few things. We have the chip shortage, and also we're working on something new. And wow, I had a lot of troubles with my pick and place machine. I've had that from the beginning, but it's if wait, I have the window open. That's why we did the screen sharing. Yeah, I can show you. Maybe there are some pictures here. There's a video here.
Should we
Um,
switch to your screen? Ah, yes.
yes. So this is the machine I have, the light placer, and you can get this as like a kit. You have to assemble all of it. It's like the individual, like it's just completely in parts, and you have to assemble it from scratch. I've learned so much from it, but I just cannot get it to pick and place reliably. There's so many. It's not like a single thing that's broken. I thought so and fixed so many things, but it's just a lot of small things that are super annoying and make this unreliable for production right now, which drives me nuts because I bought this and I spent so much money on it to be able to make the boards that I sell quicker, and so we can maybe reduce the price or make more complex boards in the future.
Hmm.
And right now I'm not able to, which is so annoying. Yeah. So I spent pretty much the entire day working on that, fixing stuff, but I was unsuccessful. So that's why my day was kind of really annoying, and I want to complain about my pick and place machine. I
Trying
wish
to
it was
scale
just
up is
more.
always hard, but especially when you have like a combination like photo sensor, 3D printer style thing that also has to very delicately place parts. It's especially when you have to assemble it, that just adds the level of complexity like even more. I All right, so I don't envy you. If we switch over to my screen for a second, I've been on my own project trying to get this really exciting 3D print mill up and running, and this is my progress so far. So originally, I was only able to get it to print out little spots of goo, and now it will print me a whole spaghetti dinner.
Uh,
So I'm not totally sure what happened with. I mean, yes, the layer, the bed adhesion is obviously a problem here. So I've got some stuff I need to still do, but as you can see, it's very good at laying down a single layer and then very carefully scooping that layer back up into a little ball of plastic. It's gotten really, really excellent at that. So for anybody who hasn't heard about this printer, I've shouted it out a couple times before. It's basically, it prints at a 45-degree angle and has a bed that moves as you print. So theoretically, you can just keep printing stuff forever. You can have multiple models on it, and it does make it kind of weird. It does make it so you can't use like certain types of support, which I find to be more convenient to remove. And for me, I haven't been able to reliably print anything that didn't come on the card so far, but we'll see what happens. It's an interesting design, and it's been absolutely frustrating to play with. But I've tried glue stick, I've tried some other stuff. I'm going to try re-leveling the bed again. I'm going to try swapping the material. We'll see what happens. But if you're looking for an interesting 3D printer, there's plenty of other videos of people printing successfully with it. I just have not been able to do that yet. All right, Stefan, you want to go ahead and get started? We have a lot to cover today.
Sure.
Okay, so first thing, have you ever heard of a tool called Bot Sentinel?
I think I've seen this before, but I basically don't know anything about it.
Right. So back during elections and stuff, I know like in Germany, you guys have an election coming up. I use Bot Sentinel a lot to be able to monitor political disinformation, because this is a bot which will analyze behavior that's tied to automated or suspicious or troll accounts and basically start watching what they're doing from a very high level. So there's an associated website with it and a Twitter account, and the Twitter account tweets out real-time alerts that are coming from like large amounts of disinformation accounts that are registered in an attempt to sway the conversation. So it'll look for patterns in the analytics for phrases that are being used, hashtags that are being used to spread disinformation. And it's often a really good bellwether of like what sorts of operations are going on to influence a conversation in an organized sort of fashion. So if you go to the project website, there's lots of different ways you can slice through the data, which is just really cool and interesting. You can see how many disruptive or problematic accounts there are. You can see alerts that are trending. There are some, I constantly see DLA trending, but that's because it monitors accounts in South American countries. So like that's a part of Spanish. So sometimes it like will, you know, it'll try to do something and not always do the best job. But let me take a look. Looking at just like hashtags, things that are trying to be used to you know, be divisive. Like it's interesting to see which accounts are involved, what they're doing, and what kind of influence operations could be going on in your local country, or you know, for some sort of manipulation of like a political event that's happening. So you can start to see it directly links to people like using that hashtag, and it can be a good indication of when stuff is happening on a pretty large scale, or when somebody starts pumping money into you know, like putting out information that's going to sway an opinion. So have you, so do you think this would be useful, Stefan, for like the upcoming German election, to maybe see like if there's a bunch of automated accounts like all saying something or publishing information that might actually be a tiny minority of the real opinion?
Yeah, we'll see. I think the campaigning time just started. So we'll probably see what is happening in the next few weeks already. By the way, I found that TikTok is trying to divide me real hard. Like I haven't really. I mean, on Twitter, I'm in my bubble, right? But whenever I'm on TikTok, it throws me very decisively, like dividing videos.
Yes.
Very, very weird. Have you had that experience?
Absolutely. What I find is that TikTok is very good at kind of pushing people into like extremes. So they'll find a video that has two things in it and then find out that you like the video, and then we'll try very hard to figure out which one of those two things you liked and push that one thing more and more aggressively until it has just a list of these things you'll respond to very strongly. So it doesn't like to stay in like complicated videos. It doesn't like to stay in like things with a lot of elements. It likes to find one simple thing and can really push you on and always get a strong response. It's kind of exploitative. Like it really like analyzes you and constantly kind of tests you to see what you're going to do in response to something that's might like put you in a minority group. And that's really what it's kind of for overall, is to classify you into different minority groups so you can be fed more specific messaging and information. Yeah, so you found something creepy.
Yeah, it's weird. Sometimes I believe it just showed me the wrong video because it thinks it aligns with my views because it's all about the same topic, but what the person in the video is saying is like completely opposite to like what I believe, you know? And I don't know. It's weird. It's weird seeing it so yeah, I don't know how to say it. It's like in your face, like here is the complete opposite of everything you believe in, and someone using very dividing language to get you on their side and stuff, and like make you angry about the other side, and weird.
Yeah, TikTok doesn't really
Disgusting.
care like why you're reacting strongly. It just wants you to interact and use the app more. You know, and
Yeah.
part of that is figuring out how to push your buttons and using all the contact with it to like pull that information out. And like I've downloaded my information from TikTok, like I've looked at what's in there. Of course, it has everything I've ever liked and whatever. But I also feel like there's a lot of information about your behavior, about the like what you're looking at in a video, what you're reacting to, that they keep on the back end and use for analytics in their own formula that they don't tell you about, because it's the results of those conclusions that are kind of used on the fly to do stuff that's not really included in those sorts of reports. Just the way I kind of feel about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the video that we released on Hack 5 this week, which was how to catch a catfish. Stefan, did you get a chance to check that out?
No, wait. This was released yesterday, right?
This was released yesterday.
Yeah.
If you had, then this would look very familiar to you. No?
Okay.
This is not ringing any bells? Nothing?
What?
So I guess you can't see it. Okay, well, it's the
No.
Roomba.
I can only see your screen. I cannot see your camera.
Right.
I'm talking to your screen.
Sorry, it is exactly... Whoa.
It's the Roomba.
It's the
Okay,
Roomba.
yeah, I know
It's
the Roomba.
Yeah, all right. So this was, I think, our second...
Oh my god, there it is.
Yeah, there
I
it
love
is. Yeah, the hairdo is
googly
really
eyes
the
is
most important
perfect.
part of it. We wanted to make it look more human because we put on the googly eyes and it's like there's just something like it just needs like a sick hairdo. So we gave it a sick hairdo. It's got its hair in like a tight, high and tight ponytail is how we did it, just to make it kind of more attractive. And the episode was about if I decided to make just like a catfishing account with this gorgeous Roomba, or maybe even more convincing photos, like what tools would a normal person have to catch me? Or, you know, if somebody's catfishing you, like what tools do you have available to catch them slipping up and make sure that you can definitively say, okay, I know this person isn't who they say they are. So we went through a bunch of different tools. We went through canary tokens. You can also use Grabify links. We went through using image metadata. We went through all this interesting information. If you want to check it out, it's all on the Hack 5 channel. It was really cool to get to release another video so quickly there. I think we're going to have James debuting on Hack 5 maybe next week, something like that. So if you want to see some more great content involving hosts that we've had on Security Forward, it's really cool to see James, who started out as, you know, some dude that tagged along at C3 and like joined our group and like kind of started getting along with us, actually end up on Hack 5. So I'm really excited to see that. And I'm also very excited to hear all the great feedback on this video. Stefan, are you ready? Ready to hear the second best comment on this?
Yeah.
Better acting than most porn videos. Excellent content, you guys. Thanks, everyone. We do it for you. All right. Well, moving on. You know what? I'll take a compliment. I don't care anymore. So next up, did you hear about this? There are lawmakers introducing legislation to create civilian hacker reserve programs that are kind of like the National Guard here. So these would be, I guess, funded by the government and be able to have a large group of people who act kind of like a cyber reserve come in and do things along the civilian front, kind of in a national security focused way, but also kind of in a civilian way. It's still a little confusing.
Wait, so what would they actually do?
So
practically?
they're gonna provide cybersecurity training for individuals who have previously worked for either the U.S. federal government or the armed services. So actually, it sounds like kind of like an inside pass to let like veterans that are getting out of the services to try to get them like jobs in the civilian world, but then setting them up also as a semi-official, semi-autonomous agency at the same time, which
This is weird.
it is weird. And frankly, as my friend Marcus was pointing out, like the issue with cybersecurity isn't this. It's like we don't have good access. We don't bring people into the field that are diverse. Like we have a really hard time recruiting people that are more diverse. Like it's not like this is not really what we need. But it's an interesting proposal. I'm sure people will have different opinions about it. But yeah, I'm not super convinced that this is the best thing for what we need. It's also, again, seems like it's only really open to people that have served in the federal government or in the Department of Defense. So I don't know, like it's not necessary to really put cybersecurity purely in the box of military needs, because that's not really what cybersecurity is. Like there's a huge civilian market that has lots of different needs and lots of different people in it. And thinking about it all as kind of like one military need is not in my opinion, the right way to kind of bring that culture. But yeah. All right. So Stefan, you know my friend Alex Lind, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So Alex Lind has a project which is a little Wi-Fi sniffer. It's an ESP01 module, or it's like just the bare ESP module that sits inside something and listens for wireless devices around it and then reports that information back to a remote server. So if you needed to know like when someone was present in a room, if you wanted to know when something was removed from a room, like when someone took a laptop or like a cell phone out, it's basically a Wi-Fi proximity sensor that sits there and monitors how close objects are to it, which is pretty cool. The thing is, we need, in order to turn this into like a good episode, like we really need a great idea about what to hide this inside of. So the first result that Alex Lynn came up with was a little inappropriate. And I was just like, Alex, like, no, like, I don't think that that's what people want to see. So I went ahead and posted this on Twitter. And the first comment was, I would hide it inside a flower vase or inside an empty water bottle. Great. I love it. That's wonderful. Every single other response to this tweet was filthy, and I'm disappointed in all of you. Okay. Yeah, it turns out Alex Lynn was right. You guys all basically picked the same thing. I'll see what I can do. Okay, you guys, I don't want to get kicked off YouTube, but we'll see what we can do. Thank you for the feedback. Just wanted to acknowledge we got a lot of great, if somewhat nasty, submissions. Another thing, we touched on the new Google method of being able to track people without cookies, and this has now been disabled by default on GitHub. So good for GitHub, and congratulations to everyone using GitHub on not having to worry about having this turned on by default, which would be a real bummer and super annoying. That's what I got for that. Stefan, do you remember anything about being flocked?
That's the new Google tracking advertising thing that we talked about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this has slowly been rolling out. Last time we showed a tool that lets you know if you are one of the users who's like in on the beta test of this. So, I mean, you can go back and watch our last Friday stream if you want to test out and see if, you are in fact one of those people who is being flocked, but I found that I was not. So that's good. That was good news for me. So another thing that was in the news recently was our good friend Patrick Wardle made news by finding yet another 0-day in macOS. And this one was actually weaponized and used pretty extensively. But what it was used for was actually really hilarious and I think is super funny. So Patrick Wardle is an ex-NSA researcher who now makes macOS security tools that look for suspicious behavior. So they basically, like Patrick, as someone who probably has maybe, I don't know, designed a piece of malware or two in his time, sits back and thinks about what things do a piece of malware need to do in order to be successful. And then his various solutions rely on looking for that suspicious behavior that most programs wouldn't do, but a malicious program would have to do in order to identify them. And this could be something like running persistently in the background, tapping your keyboard, turning on your microphone or turning on your camera, or running an unsigned binary or running a binary that has a suspicious signature. So, you can see here that Patrick had a tool that even before Apple patched this vulnerability would be able to catch it, which is just kind of like the argument for like heuristic-based tools, like tools that are based on behaviors rather than a specific virus signature. And in this case, you can see that trying to install this backdoored program would pop up and say, Bash is attempting to run a non-notarized script, and then you would be able to see information about it. You would even be able to send it to VirusTotal with a single click here. So I run this on my macOS computer. If you don't use any security tools on your macOS computer, you probably should. I have a couple recommendations. Over on Objective-C's website, you can see they also have more information about this attack if you want to support them, if you want to read the blog. But again, I highly recommend you go to the products section and download Lulu, which will prevent a malicious program from making a backdoor connection to its command and control server or anything else from that matter. It'll pop up and warn you that some program is trying to establish a backdoor connection and allow you to determine whether or not you want it to, or if that's something that you have approved. Let's see. These ones are all good. These ones are all good. But for absolute beginners, I'm going to say ransomware. Ransomware will prevent any program that's encrypting too many files from doing so until you approve it. So it'll pop up and say, so-and-so program is attempting to encrypt a bunch of files. Do you want to allow it to continue? If it's like an Adobe update, sure. If it is some random thing you're just installing, stop it immediately. Rekey is also something that will allow you to determine whether or not you have any programs intercepting your keyboard. And this doesn't work, of course, for the Wi-Fi keylogger, which we showed before, but on a laptop, there's nowhere to really plug that in anyway. So in this case, the only real way to know if a program was tapping into your keyboard and sending those keystrokes elsewhere would be to have a program like this on your computer. And then oversight is just to know if your audio or your camera have been activated without you doing it. For example, this just pops up and says, Bash has activated your camera, or Bash has activated your microphone. Like, you would probably want to know that, because why is Bash doing that if you didn't tell it to? And this has actually happened to me before. It was a false alarm, but it's very spooky to know that your audio has suddenly been turned on for like no reason and just be sitting there like wondering what happened. So those would be like the bare essential tools I would recommend if you want to be one of the cool kids that hears about this story and is like, oh yeah, I had a pop-up that said something about that. I said no. And then know that like before Apple even patched this vulnerability, you were able to detect it and shut it down. So you can kind of see this is like the technical explanation of like what's happening with the attack. But okay, let's just get into the funny part, because I got to do this. So here's one of the stories on Forbes that is featuring Patrick Wardle's work. And I'm just going to go to the bottom, and it's the Shaler attacks. So this attack was using this 0-day. Somebody figured out this problem with macOS and was just like, sick, I have control. We're going to do this, boys. Like, we're going to make a big splash. And what they did was they created a massive like click bot to click on ads and trickle in money. So after taking control of all these like powerful, expensive computers, they proceeded to install adware and made the computers like click on a bunch of ads and stuff, earning them ad revenue. And that was it. That was it.
I think this is great.
Right?
Like for what they could have done and what they did, I think this is better than, like ransomware or mining cryptocurrencies. Like this is kind of fun.
It's honestly kind of funny to me. Like, because like who really got hurt here? Like, I guess the ad companies got like tricked out of like fake ads. Like, oh no. But like it's still, of course, malware is malware.
I feel so sorry
you never know if it's going to escalate. And of course, like, breaking into someone's computer is not allowed. But this was basically like Trojan installers that would have some sort of ability to then bypass these security protections that had been put in place and do virtually whatever they want. In this case, whatever they wanted was just to make a couple extra bucks by making your computer click on ads that who cares about, right? But that could easily escalate to ransomware, or it could escalate to more targeted attacks. And you never know when a larger entity like a nation state or something might be like, hey, sick attack. Like, thanks for leaving this wide open. Like, we're going to go ahead and use this for something like much more nefarious. So it was an interesting and kind of unexpected development that, Yeah, like not only did Max have this huge security hole, but it was actively being used for such like a kind of like script kiddie attack that you would not associate with someone who was like going specifically after Mac OS computers. Like you would think that people that were going after Mac OS computers would want to ransomware them maybe because maybe there's expensive important stuff on there. But no. Um, no, they didn't want to do that. Okay, Stefan, have you ever bought a Dell?
Oh my God. I saw you retweet this. I read the entire
Me
thing.
too. Me too.
Um,
Uh,
I myself did not buy a Dell, but my parents did. And yeah.
okay,
Oh, I
so
had a Dell computer before. And I had a problem with it, and the support never helped me.
yeah, so this is the saddest Twitter thread I've ever read.
And it's so long.
Yeah, iPatchWolf attempted to purchase a Dell computer and be a cool guy, and instead ended up just getting the roughest end of the corporate stick that I have ever heard. I can't read this whole thread to you guys, but just if you have a moment and you have like sympathy for another person's pain and some time, this just is so sad. Let's just say that everything did not go right and that this person is still dealing with the ramifications of what's going on. And also that Dell did send one of their most powerful representatives out to personally put out this giant fire, which began attracting a ton of attention on Twitter. Yikes.
Is there an
So,
update to it? Last thing
oh
I
my
saw
gosh,
was
a
a
poll.
poll.
I
Yeah.
believe, I believe, based on the results of the poll, this individual has accepted the offer. John Walsh has accepted the offer of having a new Dell computer shipped out that is just completely like un the way this one is. I can't say how badly this computer is messed up, but just suffice it to say that no amount of like money or uh, uh, just tenacity has seemed to be able to make this computer function as was intended. So you can
So
see
honestly,
75% of people voted to just get a new computer and let the whole thing go. But let's just say, like, I dressed up as a Dell computer for Halloween one year and walked around West Hollywood, and I had like LEDs on the inside and like the Dell logo, and like people really associated with that brand. Like a lot of people really thought something good about Dell computers in particular. Please read this thread if you still feel that way, and then you can come to your own decision. But I will say that for just some random computer company slapping on a refrigerator box, painting Dell on the side, and putting blue LEDs on the inside was probably easily the most successful costume I've done. That's gotten everyone who walked by to pat the box affectionately and tell me a story about their first Dell computer. Increasingly as people got drunk throughout the night. All right. So we've talked about a couple times what happens when you are a young researcher and you're trying to disclose a vulnerability, but this was one of my favorite things that I've seen. This was a old thread from 2017 when a young researcher reported a security vulnerability on an MIT domain and got a response back that said, if you scan our systems again, we're going to involve law enforcement. This type of activity is prohibited and may result in 5 years in prison. You caused a
Wow.
significant disruption and inconvenience. I believe you have also damaged the database, but I cannot prove that yet. And then in a second email, after further reviewing system logs, I suggest you retain an attorney, you 16-year-old, and cease further communications. This is how lots of companies respond to being told that they've done something wrong or that there's an issue with their server. And this is also why it kind of sucks to be a young researcher and be trying to help people out. This person wasn't even asking for money. They're just like explaining that there's a problem here and they might want to fix it. So if you ever get a stern response back from a company that tells you that your security vulnerability you found doesn't really matter, or that like they're gonna tell on you or whatever, just know at least you don't have MIT telling you they're going to involve law enforcement, and that as a 16-year-old you need to retain a lawyer.
So what did this person do? Like run a Nmap scan, or do you know?
Um, I I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of information in this thread,
Because
and it triggered me so hard that like by the third reply, I was just like, I can't. Like this is making me like
yeah.
flashback to every bad disclosure I've ever done. Stefan, have you ever told a business that they've made a security mistake and had them just like absolutely flip out or do nothing?
No, I have not.
Okay. Well, wow. Okay, I guess I just did that a lot then. Well, all right. I was in Rachel, Nevada, which is the closest you can legally get to Area 51, in a diner called the Little Alien, when I connected to their Wi-Fi and found that it was wide open and didn't require a password in able to administer the router. So when I told them this, and it's like, hey, like anybody could come in here and shut down your internet, do something malicious with it, they got the owner by shouting, hey, there's some cyber guy over here got some computer mess to talk about. And the owner comes over and in the most hostile way possible tells me that it is not a problem and they do not care. So I am absolutely dead confident that this computer is still probably vulnerable out there somewhere, this whatever, because they don't want no cyber stuff. They've made that very clear to me. I've had lots of disclosures where I've been like either condescendingly told that I don't understand the problem and why it's not a problem, or I have to demonstrate why it's a problem before anybody will believe me, and then I get yelled at for causing a huge problem. So just know it's really difficult to both like communicate this stuff, not make somebody feel blamed. Like it's really hard, and that's why, as I've recommended in the past, if you have to do a disclosure and you're not sure how to do it, companies like BugCrowd or Hackeroni can also help you manage the disclosure and make sure that if you are doing this in the best interest of the company and you're doing it according to the rules, you don't get in trouble and you don't get yelled at, or at least you get yelled at through someone else. All right.
Did you just call Hacker? What is it? Hacker One? Hackeroni?
Hackeroni. Oh, do you call it Hacker One?
I don't know. Is that what are we talking about?
Oh, I mean, I've heard it called both ways. How do you like? What do you call it, guys in the chat? How do you guys pronounce that? Is it Hacker One or Hackeroni? Because I've been calling it Hackeroni for years.
Hackeroni sounds great.
And we met with them and they didn't seem weirded out when I kept saying that. So
Great.
yeah. Okay. So another thing that I saw that was just a great resource was how people use keys and certifications to log into Linux servers over SSH. There's lots of null-byte videos that I've done in the past that don't show you how to do this. And I constantly see people talking about, oh, well, how can I mitigate brute forcing? How can I get around people trying to brute force my password? Well, using SSH keys to log in is really, really essential. Stefan, would you expose like an SSH server to the raw internet without using like an SSH key?
Of course I wouldn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, you act like that's obvious, but a lot of people might not realize that you just setting up a normal like SSH login and using a regular password is, in this day and age, not a good idea if you're going to be exposing it directly to the internet. And it is much, much, much more secure to use an SSH key. So I really like this video. I thought it was a good way for people to get started on knowing how to do that. So if you are doing anything with SSH, even on your local network, it is just such a better idea to use an SSH key. And this is a good way to learn how to do that. Now this, I really like teaching OSINT. This is a little bit involved, but it's a part of OSINT that I wish I could get a little bit more just good with, I guess. They were able to find a hiker who had just recently posted a picture of their legs dangling over a cliff. And the way that they were able to do this was really ingenious and interesting. They were able to identify the general area that the hiker was in and use a bunch of mapping data to be able to predict like where the shadows would be in the valley and some other information to basically create an overlay that looked so similar to this that it convinced the rescuers that this was the area that this guy was in. And there were a couple assumptions here also that really, really help. Like if someone's lost around Angeli's Crest, you'll typically find that they go in a certain direction, which is like down. They're likely moving downhill, not uphill, so they narrowed the search area. They managed to find more recent data than Google Earth had available. which also helped them be able to determine like the exact angle. And then they were able to produce this. So this was the original photo, and this was the angle they were able to get, showing like the valley going off to the side. Like there's two different valleys here that you can see pretty plainly. And again, this was enough to convince rescuers that this was the area to start looking for the guy. So if you're interested in how it's possible to take a photo that's blurry and you only have like a general location, like where it is, and find out actually what angle it was taken from and like what specific position that person could have been in, this thread is super informative and really kind of blew me away with what you can do with OSINT. So highly recommend it. If you want to check that out, here is the thread. Let's see. Oh, and then another great thing I wanted to give a shout out was the WPA3 hacking video that we did on Hack5 last week. So Matthew commented that he was pretty jet lagged, but his answers sound reasonable, which I'll take as a good sign. But this video touched on the new WPA3 standard and how it was broken, fixed, and then kind of broken again, and how Matthew has been working to continually help test it and make sure the new standard is more secure when it comes out. Now, there has been some good news where since this video came out, the standard has been updated a bit and it looks like they fixed some of these problems, but there are still some fundamental flaws with this, and the older versions are still official versions of WPA3 that came out and are running on devices, which probably won't be updated for a while. So these flaws are out, they're in the wild, they're good to know about, and I thought this was a really fun video that we did covering a much more technical topic than we did before that, which was a video that not everybody liked, but that's okay. I think we were covering like IoT devices and how you can attack them, but I guess people really just wanted to know how you can hack the next generation of Wi-Fi. So if you want to see a really great interview with one of, in my opinion, is the best experts on WPA3 hacking, then check this out on Hack5 because I thought it went really well. Oh, and also Matthew's research papers have been influencing what Stefan and I have been talking about in terms of the next generation of the Wi-Fi deauthor and the next generation of using some of these advances in Wi-Fi research to actively create new types of attacks. One of those that we've been talking about based on Matthew's research is using beacons, this in a way similar to how deauthentication frames currently work. So being able to do deauthentication style attacks or targeting a specific device using only beacon frames, which are just supposed to advertise the network, but instead can be manipulated to work in malicious ways. So there's lots of really cool stuff going on with Wi-Fi research that I wasn't even aware was possible, that is looking at maybe even possibly being included in future versions of the Wi-Fi deauthor or other Wi-Fi hacking tools. And some of these, I might add, are much more difficult to detect than some of the current methods, like just sending out deauthentication frames. All right, so another thing with open source intelligence, I've been doing a lot of Maltego investigations, and they just enabled another transform I find really useful, and those are Bing transforms to get news articles and break them into entities so that you can do subsequent searches. If you're doing investigations using like the free version of Maltego, then you can use this transform, and it allows you to take a topic, run a Bing search, and it breaks it out into entities you can run subsequent searches on. Super convenient for a lot of things. And yeah, I've been trying a lot of new Maltego transforms in the last couple days because I have a presentation I'm doing on it. And there's also TinEye. So if one of the results of your search is a photo, you can look on the internet and find other places that photo has appeared, even if the photo has been altered, cropped in, color corrected a little bit, or had some other basic changes made to it. So it's a pretty good way to like start with a topic, do a search, find an image or something, and then pivot off of it to broaden the scope of your investigation and find more just information out there. So I really like this. I thought it was cool. There's, do I have an investigation? No, I closed my Maltego tab. But yeah, like there's a lot of different ways you can use this, and I thought it was interesting and cool to throw in a search engine to just bring in more relevant results and have them already kind of pre-digested for subsequent searches. All right, Stefan, did you hear about the Cellbrite Signal thing, where Signal found out how Cellbrite was working to detect it and did some shenanigans?
Yeah, wait. Oh my God. I know this. They were like they were like arguing with them, and then they hacked them back or something.
Yeah. So this is, I'm not going to go too far into this, but basically, like, yes, Cellbrite is a forensic tool that is designed to be able to recover information from, let's say, unwilling subjects or people who otherwise are having their data collected from their phone directly. It doesn't, as it says right here, Cellbrite starts with somebody physically holding your device in their hands. It doesn't do data interception or remote surveillance. So, yeah, that's one thing. The problem here is that Signal was able to find some vulnerabilities, and that because this is a pretty locked down product, and there were, let's just say, not a lot of people poking around at the firmware, it means that these vulnerabilities tended to stick around and last for a very long time. So that means that somebody could actively exploit them. Maybe somebody who was being targeted for collection by the app. So I'll let you guys dig into this a little bit more if you want to see what exactly happens here. But let's just say that Signal made some updates that took advantage of these unpatched vulnerabilities and made it more difficult for Cellbrite to do its thing when it comes to invading someone's privacy, perhaps, and trying to intercept Signal messages. So really interesting story, generated a lot of just a general discourse around what Signal was doing and like whether this had really been done before. And yeah, very, very general positive community reaction because nobody really likes Cellbrite. All right, so let's talk about a controversy that generated a very negative community reaction. So at this point, the University of Minnesota has been banned from contributing to the Linux kernel. And the reason that this happened was because there was a group of security researchers there who decided to submit bugs intentionally into the Linux kernel to see if they would be applied and then, be like, hey, we got you. So this was discovered. It annoyed the people who were working on Linux, and they said, please stop doing this. And then there were recently patches submitted that were nonsense and seemed to submit even more bugs, even though they'd been explicitly told to stop doing this. So I read the response and from the researchers who were told by the Linux people, hey, please stop doing this. We've told you to stop doing this, and these patches don't make sense and they include bugs. And the researcher was just like, how dare you accuse us of slander? Like, I might not have written a good tool, but this is, at least I tried. Even though this might not be worthy of the Linux kernel, you shouldn't discourage people from trying to contribute to it by saying that their buggy, bad code is a sneaky attempt to do something bad, even though we're the same guys that just did that thing. So eventually, like, the Linux people were like, okay, we're done. We don't want to do this anymore. Like, you keep sending us patches that don't contribute anything, and we have to scrutinize them extensively because you guys are sketchy. So they just banned the entire department. So initially, the faculty released just kind of a, like, please put everything on pause. We're investigating. We're going to figure out, like, what's going on. But they subsequently updated this with a non-apology from the researchers that basically was just like, you guys, you have to understand we had the best of intentions. We knew that nobody would ever possibly say yes to this idea, so we went ahead and did it anyway. And we're sorry that we got caught. But you have to understand, our intentions were amazing, and you guys never would have agreed to it. So, like, can you just see it into your hearts to let us back into your project? Because our intentions are great this time, too. It just didn't really seem like they understood like what the problem was, like wasting volunteers' time and like creating security problems from, like, this is an academic institution that's supposed to have its own internal oversight. And basically, like, the Linux community has now decided that there is no internal oversight at this institution, and thus they should be treated just as skeptically as some random, developer that might be submitting known bad patches. So we had a couple people in the comments say, like, this is overreaching. You shouldn't be banning them for, for this kind of behavior. It's legitimate research. I would argue that, like, messing with people that are trying to, like, do open source projects knowingly from, like, a point of trust as an educational institution that supposedly has its own internal procedures to review this sort of stuff is shady and makes it very difficult to want to accept any sort of contributions from a school that doesn't want to have those rigorous standards in place to make sure that, you're not wasting researchers or maintainers' time and causing issues that could be exploited by somebody else. So, this just seemed like a very sloppy way of attempting to test the security of something. I mean, does this need to be tested? Yes. Should there be good protocols, rigorous protocols in place for preventing bugs from getting into the Linux kernel? Yes. But should schools that are trusted and theoretically have their own internal review process be submitting known bad patches that they know can cause issues? No, I don't think they should. And I think that that's what the Linux community has come to the conclusion of until there's a more, let's just say, comprehensive apology or understanding of what the real issue was here. But I guess we'll see how that all works out.
And it seems like the plan was not really thought through. There was never really a plan here. It's just, I guess, an experiment that wasn't really thought through. So there was no clear start or end or explanation, at least from what you just told. That's what I get the feeling of. And so, yeah, you can not really trust him anymore. This doesn't seem to be like any scientific thing.
Yeah.
Weird.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. So some good news on the malware front is Emotet died. Or rather, it destroyed itself from lots and lots of infected PCs around the world. We know there was a big operation to bring that down fairly recently, and it looks like now they've finally gotten around to actually doing the deed and wiping the infected Windows Dynamic Link Library, the DLL file, off of Windows. And this is, I guess, being put out by the people who seize control of the servers and are trying to fully eradicate this relatively nasty strain of malware that's been around for quite some time. So it's kind of weird to see about something that's been around this long and just been alive this long just finally being taken down. But I guess it took that really big raid to actually take all the servers offline and get physical control over the network in order to finally finish it off. So poor one out for Emotet, I guess. I guess it's finally, the dream is finally dead for some poor developer who made this thing years ago. How sad. Well, I mean, I guess it's not sad. It's just, it died. You had to say something. So another interesting thing related to malware was a glitch in ransomware payment systems that basically made it possible to recover your data without paying the hackers. So there's all sorts of problems with payment systems, and in particular, if you're trying to automate the exchange of secret keys and stuff like that, issues can come up where maybe you didn't get the best plugin for your ransomware WordPress site or something like that. Stefan, I know you've had issues with things like this.
Yeah, the WordPress plugins, they are great. They always work. There are never problems when you install the 25th WordPress plugin to do this one tiny thing because for some reason it's not built in, and then it does interesting stuff with one of your other 25 plugins because they don't like each other, and it's always a great experience. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like some hackers enabled the wrong plugin or otherwise just had some glitch in their payment system that allowed it to be tricked into thinking they'd received payment without actually receiving payment. So this dude...
sounds familiar.
Yeah, so this dude managed to... Right? Yeah. Apparently it's pretty common. Find victims of the QLocker ransomware and was able to help them out by showing them... Anyway, before this was patched, which it's really sad that the ransomware criminals were like, oh no, IT security, and patched it immediately. But we're still able to save $27,000 in potential victims' losses, which is awesome. So sometimes poking around in payment systems, you are allowed to break them if they are currently being used to steal money from people who have had their computers locked. And there's lots of different cases of malware where the developers have gotten lazy or made a mistake, and there is a way to recover the key that has encrypted all the data, meaning that the ransomware can basically be diffused without needing to agree to the attacker's demands.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So actually, let's go ahead and cut away from my screen for a second. I'm going to go back to the chat and just say hi, because I've been on this for such a long time.
Hi, chat.
Hi, chat. And I do want to prove that we are live and in fact see if we've had any questions, because oh my gosh, we've had over
Wait, we are live?
Yeah.
Dang, I didn't know.
So if any of you guys have questions or anything, especially about the topics that we've had, then feel free to drop them in the chat, because we are again live today. And Zam also gave me a couple topics to mention. I think I've mentioned most of them, but one that was interesting was there was also, for whatever reason, the article isn't loading well, but there was also some ransomware. I think it was actually QLocker ransomware that was going after QNAP NAS systems. So yeah, looks like that QLocker ransomware is going kind of far and wide, and it is going after anything that it can get into. So if you have a QNAP NAS system, then maybe you should update it urgently. Let's see. And then I think the last topic we had today that haven't covered so far was, I think we can switch back, was Apple being hit by a $50 million ransomware hacking attack. So this is unusual, but of course, like typically when these things happen, it can be from a supplier or somebody else who has like different security practices than the main parent company, and that looks like is exactly what happened here. This seems to be a Russian hacking group that has gone after a Taiwanese-based company that serves as one of Apple's suppliers. And of course, because this is some other company, they have their own procedures. Sometimes this makes them the weakest link in an attack, and it makes them easy prey for somebody who wants to go after an even bigger target. So in this case, what's kind of interesting was if you can't strike out at Apple, maybe instead you're going to go after a company that they contract with, that they really rely on for a bunch of important stuff, but don't have any direct control over the way that that company does security. Or maybe they have some standards they have to agree to or stand up, but they don't necessarily have the ability to internally audit it as you would with your own company. Well, that presents an opportunity. And unfortunately, it looks like this ransomware group was able to find out how to get in and ransomware a bunch of information that is super critical. This is also, it looks like a case of what's sometimes called double exploitation, where they will also take the information themselves and not just encrypt it on the victim's computer, they'll also exfiltrate it and threaten to leak it if they don't get money. So in this case, if they have proprietary secrets for, oh my gosh, it looks like Microsoft, HP, Toshiba, Google, Facebook, Dell, Alienware, Lenovo, LG, BlackBerry, like Cisco, and yeah, just lots and lots of different companies. If they have like, sensitive intellectual property for these companies, then having that stuff released on the broad internet might be a really bad thing. Now, this is happening to lots of different organizations, and in fact, the DC Parks Police District, I believe, was also hit with an attack where the data very well might be locked on their system, but that is not the issue. The issue is that the hackers got access to personnel files and downloaded them and are now threatening to release them. So sometimes the threat of leaking the information might be what pushes somebody over the edge for paying the ransom, rather than actually running the ransomware itself and denying that person access to the information. So, I mean, would it be terrible to not have access to your personnel files? Yes, that would absolutely mess up your HR stuff. It would be terrible. It would be hard to pay people. Would it be terrible to have your personnel files leaked online? Well, if you have like undercover police like informants, if you have other stuff like that that would like put people's lives in danger, then yes, that becomes a very urgent problem that people might have to start looking at the benefit of maybe just paying the ransom if it prevents these people's lives from being put in danger. Like, it's very interesting to see how these ransomware attacks have evolved from just denying access to information to also taking a pretty good crack at trying to steal the data as well, just in case you can get yourself in a scenario where releasing the information might be more damaging than just destroying it. Yeah.
And what if they release them anyway?
I mean, it's more, yeah, that's true. The thing is, like, if you're a criminal organization and you get paid and then you don't do what you said you were going to do, your victims will probably stop paying you. Like, is my thought. It's like criminal organizations like make threats and execute on them, and then they're supposed to be like more or less good on their word when it comes to like ransomwares and stuff. Because if you just Google this ransomware group and you see that they never ever actually give you the key, even if you pay them, why the hell would you ever pay them? But you never know. Like, sometimes these are also people imitating a known group. They might have another agenda where releasing the information actually benefits them and they just wanted to get some extra money on top of it. I mean, it really tends to be motivated by money, and whether or not this is an organization that like consistently makes money off of their reputation, or if this is just a one-off that's managed to get access to a really important company's files or sensitive information. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and
Crazy.
yeah, let's go ahead and cut back. I'm gonna go back to the chat. We've got probably like 5 more minutes. Um, and all right, one question is, do you believe the Tuskow breach is legit? I don't know about that breach. I would have to Google it. So unfortunately, I'm probably not the best person to ask. Stefan, have you heard about that one?
Nope.
It sounds like a complicated story, and I'm not going to wade into it. There's even like a,
Yeah.
is it, yeah, okay. There's a lot
Yeah.
going on there. Excellent question. We'll probably get back to you on the next stream. So, one question was about macros. Yes, we have extensively covered macros. We also did a nullbyte stream that basically covered exactly how to create them. So if you're curious on macro attacks, then it is definitely a lot easier than you're probably thinking. And you can find a currently working macro that we demonstrated on the nullbyte channel or also on the SecurityFWD channel with our co-host Killian, which was actually a lot of fun and scary. Oh yeah, somebody said, imagine hitting an Apple supplier and only asking for 50 million. Maybe, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's pretty funny. You would think that maybe they would ask for more, but maybe the supplier only has like some, maybe if this is a smart attacker, like they figured out what the economic impact of this would be or how valuable the information really is, and that's the most they can get. But it is kind of curious to know like why, like when going after like such a huge company, you would only ask for that much. But I guess that's just probably part of the assessment of like what kind of data was taken and how seriously it would affect the company and what they would be willing to pay to keep it under wraps. Whew. But what's the best way to ensure software dependencies that your software depends on don't get hacked, or how to reduce the risk? That's hard. We've had a lot of vulnerabilities that we've talked about in the last couple of weeks that have been based on, for example, like submitting a malicious update to like pip or something, so that when you're installing like a Python dependency, it'll actually create a backdoor or something like that. So that's a difficult one. As you involve a lot of dependencies in your project, and as these dependencies rely on package managers and other sorts of third-party systems to install themselves properly, you definitely introduce the possibility that you could have a malicious dependency or something come in and infect your project. Stefan, is this something you're worried about?
Hard to say.
So you heard it here first. This developer is not worried at all about malicious dependencies. So feel free to use all of his projects, dependencies and all, because he's not losing any sleep.
I mean, I don't have a good answer to this, to be honest. Like, what can I say? Of course, it is a problem. There are some solutions for it, although nothing is perfect. If you restrict something, you make it really hard to enter that maybe that system to distribute your software, or it creates other problems. And I like it whenever I can publish something and make it like really easy for someone to install. And if there are no barriers at all, that's great. But then, of course, the barriers are also not there for anyone to mess with that. And yeah, so it's, yeah.
Yeah, so one comment we got was, I don't mean macros. Those aren't CVEs. That's social engineering. And some places don't even have macros turned on. I'm talking about actual exploits. I mean, the problem with actual exploits is as soon as people start using them, they instantly get patched. And we can always cover old exploits, but like most of the time, we don't want to cover exploits that have been released within like 6 months, because like we want like 6 months is kind of my minimum, because we want to give people adequate time to patch. And we don't want on the show anyway to be, I don't know why it benefits people for us to show active exploits, because like basically they're weaponized by like a tool that you can download off GitHub, and it's not really like cool. Like I don't like, because it's like it's either already patched very soon going to be patched. Like, I'm much more interested in like macro exploits and stuff that will always work, and you can use all sorts of like creative ways of using that as a springboard to do stuff that might involve like a bunch of CVEs. But like CVEs, like you never know when someone has patched, when they've not patched, what their schedule is. Like it's totally dependent on your victim to make the mistake here. So like once a CVE has been identified, it's not a 0 day, and like we don't hear about 0 days until a lot of people know about them. So like it's just hard to feature those because like they're just, you know, they're just
Yeah, and
in process
I mean,
patch computer problems that are like varying amounts of being old that have been weaponized to some degree. Like
I also like to focus on the things that we can actually educate people on, so it has a long-term impact. You know, if a lot of people know about this, they can prevent stuff. If we talk about very specific vulnerabilities, we also get into this field where if we make specific tutorials on specific bugs or like how to exploit them, then we have the whole issue with what's the correct word for this? Like hacking content, but not like our hacking content, but like tutorials to do exploits. Videos like that get banned, you know, get blocked from YouTube and stuff. But if we make something about more general topics and teach people how to prevent them and how they work, and that stuff that is more like general and good to know about, then this is more in the education section and
we have yet another request to show how to use low orbit ion cannon. So that's our cue to get the hell off the stream. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us in the chat today, except for that last comment, my God. And if you want to get yourself arrested for running a computer a service locally on your computer that spams victims with traffic, then go ahead and try that out. But don't worry, apparently our user here used their toaster, so that's relatively untraceable. It's very hard to track down like the GPU on a toaster. So, you know, if you are going to use low orbit ion cannon, it seems like the current suggestion in the chat is veering towards using a toaster.
True.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for your commentary and comments today. We covered a lot of different topics. As you can see, there's lots of stuff going on in cybersecurity. The hypocrites commit thing, I think, with the University of Minnesota, I think was probably like the wildest one that we covered today. So, hey, if you're submitting to open source projects, maybe let them know if you're going to use them as human guinea pigs, I guess is the takeaway from this week. But we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks, Stefan, for coming on and complaining about his pick and place machine, but also hinting about the next generation of the Wi-Fi deauthor. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.